But I think one of the key things, and I find this with my own clients, and it's been great to be able to use your work with them, is that the idea that our brain changes over time, the plasticity of the brain. And I think there's so many of us that think, well, I've always been this way, or everybody in my family is this way. And we get resigned to that we just have to deal with certain things, deal with depression or deal with this thought. And we can get into this, but you talk about how to rewire that brain. And I love the idea of that dirty secret of psychology and coaching is, I always talk about you go to a great weekend and you're really uplifted after this seminar or this workshop, and then Monday you go back to all your old routines. Mm-hmm. And I think if we talk about that two-stage process you have of that activation and installation, of actually consciously reprogramming our mind, choosing the habits, the thought patterns, the existence that we want, and teaching our brain that versus being the victim of our brain.
That's right. What people can do really from the inside out is take charge of the structure-building processes of their own brain. In other words, the brain is the organ that continually changes. It's constantly changing its structure. To just give people a sense of its complexity and speed, there are about 1.1 trillion cells inside your head, about 10% of which, roughly 100 billion or so, are neurons. And a typical neuron makes about 5,000 connections with other neurons, giving us a network inside our head of about 500 trillion synapses, those little junctions or connections between neurons. And through those synapses, information is flowing, neurons are firing on the order of 5 to 50 times a second. And so you could just imagine, holy moly, you can just kind of visualize this vast net inside your head. Speaking of the internet, inside your head with 500 trillion little, computers, if you will, or switches hooked up with each other, each one of which is a synapse. And even a single synapse is really pretty complex in terms of the various factors located just at that synapse that affect how it fires or processes information or moves signals around. So anyway, just imagine this vast net just kind of blinking away inside your own head. And the thing to remember is that neurons that fire together wire together for better or worse. In other words, parts of that net that are routinely firing will build structure and change function there. And the problem is because of the negativity bias that the brain has evolved to help our ancestors survive, because they had to be really on their toes, to be constantly looking for threats and predators and bad news, right? Opportunities, rewards, food, and so forth, those are good. But rule one in the wild is, eat lunch today, don't be lunch today, right? So because of the brain's negativity bias, it's good at learning from bad experiences, but it's comparatively bad at learning from good ones. In other words, if what we're trying to do is grow confidence, unconditional self-worth, determination, peace of mind, a sense of, patience or love or abilities, social skills, what have you, the way we grow those is by having experiences of them. If you want to develop more patience, install more experiences of being patient. If you want to become more mindful in general, install more experiences of mindfulness. That's the key. So we've got this kind of paradox that the brain has a bottleneck in which it quickly absorbs negative experiences into structure. Once burned, twice shy, right? If something bad happens in our day, that's what we obsess about, right? That's what we dwell on. That's what we ruminate on. If we're in work and our boss gives us 10 pieces of feedback and one of them is negative, room for improvement, that's the one we obsess on and talk about for 20 minutes at dinner, with other people. So, and yet positive stuff, positive experiences, even though positive experiences are the primary basis or source for the inner strengths such as positive mood or resilience or loving kindness that we want to grow in ourselves, positive experiences, the brain has a hard time turning those into any kind of lasting structure.